Next, like theaters around the world, New Repertory Theater in Watertown hasn't been able to put anything on its stages. But it is finding new footing, from walking plays to streaming, and all while taking some of the most forceful steps to combat racism. New Rep's artistic director Michael Bobbitt recently joined me to discuss that and more. Michael Bobbitt, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jared, for having me. It's good to see you again.
I'll start with the hardest question. When is theater coming? When is live theater coming back?
I don't know. And I think that we all have to be prepared that we need to continue innovating and trying new ways of doing theater, because who knows? I mean, COVID's going to be around forever.
And what does that mean for, and in a moment we'll talk about the virtual offerings that you have, but what does that mean for theater in this interim to have this time away from a live stage and not having audiences come together physically?
Well, I think it's a couple of things. I think, one, we have the opportunity to start thinking about ways of innovating and incorporating digital theater or film theater into our canon, things that we have stayed away from because the building of doing theater inside was a sacred space, and now that has been challenged, so we have to come up with new things.
Well, does this, and I'll let you talk about the virtual offerings that you're about to have in New Repertory Theater this throughout November and into the winter. But does this make you filmmakers all of a sudden?
Yes, and yes and no. And this I think is a deficit in the training that we're offering our theater professionals right now, that we're all learning it. But yeah, we have to become filmmakers. We have to think about what the people are going to be seeing at home and how do we create that sort of live and visceral experience, even though we're separated and not in the same space.
So tell me what you're doing with your virtue. You have 2 plays coming up, 2 shorter plays that'll be online. Tell me about them.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out a way to, as I said, create this sort of live and visceral experience of seeing something happening at the same time. So we have 2 plays coming up. One is by Alexis Shear and one is by Miranda Adojoke. They are written for this platform. They're both interactive. So patrons will come to a website. They'll be greeted by sort of a house manager of some sort, and they'll be told about how the event will work. They'll see one play. I think we're going to see Alexis's first. It's about a half an hour. It is interactive, so patrons will be part of the action. They will have to gather things on their own to participate along with the actor in the play. And then at intermission, they're going to be met by, I don't know, like a virtual bartender or a busker entertaining them for the 15 minutes of intermission. And then they'll come back and go to the second play.
I mean, you're not going to tell me it's not fun to do, but my question was going to be, is this fun to do, or do you think we're doing this because we have to do this to get through this time?
I think it's both in many ways. And one of the things that the staff and I talked about was that whatever we create, we don't want it to be a stopgap, because I don't think digital theater is going to go away. But I do miss the live aspect of it. And I was happy to see you at the walking play a couple of weeks ago, because that was exciting to have theater outdoors.
It was my first live performance in, 6-7 months at that point. It was very exciting for me, too. But it also made me wonder how you all are doing. We hear about the epic job loss in the arts community. How do you assess it at this point?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that we probably haven't seen the kind of job loss we're going to see, because, again, I'm not sure we'll be back up and running for a while. We have put people first, and with the support of the board, we have chosen not to lay off anyone or furlough anyone. We are able to keep our doors open through the generosity of donors and patrons and sponsors and foundations, so we're super, super grateful for that. As things reopen and as we embrace innovation, I'm hoping we'll bring in a little cash from productions that are not in the theater.
Your theater is one of the first that I saw that has come out with a major, comprehensive, very detailed anti-racism plan. We've talked about this on this show, the racial reckoning that is happening all across the country and, of course, within American theater. You start, I noticed, with the board. A lot of people talk about the shows you present, the people you put on stage, but you talked about the board. Why is that important?
Well, I will be frank and honest that I think that theater and the arts has been terrible at developing anti-racist culture and diversifying their audiences, and mostly because the people that are coming up with these ideas are probably programming people. They're artists. And so their ideas for fixing and solving problems is to tell stories or to do sort of outreach programs. And those don't work. New Rep has chosen to focus on governance and focus on operations and patron services and marketing, all the things on the other side of the table, because I believe that is where the racism exists. And not that there are bad people involved, but there are policies and procedures that we have been perpetuating for years and years and years. And the reason why we start with the board is because that's where the decisions are made. If that board is not building in anti-racist policies, then all that will trickle down into the rest of the organization. So we're doing things like we're getting rid of our subscriptions because subscriptions can perpetuate white supremacy.
You're the first and still the only person I've heard talk about that. Subscriptions, I'm sure people know, but we'll remind them that's where you buy a package for the entire season, you're guaranteed seats. But why have you taken a look at that?
Well, there are many problems with subscriptions. Some are financial. We're collecting all this money from people 6 months to a year before we produce something. And because it's a cash flow model, we're spending that money when it comes in. So God forbid there's a flood or a strike or a pandemic, we have already spent your money. There are issues with marketing because most of these campaigns, we kick you out at the end of the year and then we have to put all these resources into renewing you. So that's a problem. So that aside, there's many problems with subscriptions. But from a racism point of view, you have to think about what group of people has enough money to buy a year's worth of tickets 6 months in advance. And then what privileges are we giving those people that we're taking away from other people? There has to be a better way. And we're now looking into sort of a Netflix model where you pay a certain amount of money a month and you get all access to all of our content. And I think that's going to be a better model. That's a little bit more of an equitable patron loyalty program. But we're also going to general admission seating so that everyone has the chance to sit up front.
How do you expect people to react to this? And I asked this in light of something that I read about that I mentioned you were first out, or one of the first with an anti-racism plan, one of the first, if not the first, with a message in support of Black Lives Matter on June 1st. And how was that answered?
I'm hoping that as we roll out these new procedures and policies from a racial equity point of view, I hope people will embrace it. Because I do believe that anti-racism is an act of love. So regarding that, when we came out with our Black Lives Matter statement, there were probably 6 or 7 patrons that responded very negatively to that. And I sent them a note saying, I appreciate your note, but you are no longer welcome to be a patron of this theater. And from my perspective, if you don't believe that Black Lives Matter, then you can't come to the theater run by a Black man.
Simple as that.
Simple as that. You're not welcome. I mean, you probably can come because the ticket sales are still anonymous, but you're not welcome because our culture is going to be anti-racist. And so racists are not welcome.
Well, finally, I know that I was unfair to you at the beginning asking you when theater is going to come back. Nobody has, of course, that answer. Not even the great Anthony Fauci has that answer. But do you have a show in mind, something in mind of what you want when you envision that day when you're back on the stage and you get to make that curtain speech once again of what you'd like to be saying it for?
Well, my goal is to shift New Rep from being a predominantly white institution to a predominantly multicultural institution where the stories of all of our people are being shared on stage and the audience reflects that. When I started rereading adult theater, I was like, there's like a list of 100 plays I want to do. So it's hard to pick one. I was really excited about opening the season with Angels in America, and maybe that's the first one I want to see come back really bad. With a nice diverse cast and a diverse cast of artists bringing that story to life.
And people rising up as we see in Angels in America. Michael Bobbitt, thank you so much. Always great to see you.
You too, Jared. See you soon, my friend.